It was always the Jags.
It's always the Jags. It's always the Jags.
Always the Jags.
Welcome back into Always the Jags, your podcast for everything Jacksonville, everything Jaguars, everything Duval. Man, it's tough. It's tough. I'm not gonna say it's tough being a Jags fans right now because we're still 4-2, right? We did just lose to the Seahawks, right? That's not a surprise. Well, I'm not gonna say it's not a surprise, but it was a tough game because we were on such a high after beating the Chiefs, right, on Monday night. And so coming down from that, people kind of thought there could be a lull, right? And it's funny because like pundits and even the team kind of predicted that. And Liam Cohen's like, we need to keep working, make sure that doesn't happen. And Jaguars players even said they were disappointed in how they played against the Chiefs. So you would kind of hope that they would use that to move themselves forward against the Seahawks. However, that didn't end up coming into fruition. And that didn't end up happening. We ended up losing 20-12 in a game where we fought and battled, and we led early on, but it felt like once Seattle took control of the game, they never let go. Obviously, we didn't threaten. We took a lot of snaps, not in the lead. It was a beautiful touchdown play to Brian Thomas Jr. And right when that happened, I thought, okay, the Jaguars might be able to get another win at the home crowd and stay undefeated for our fans. But in reality, Seattle's a good team. Seattle is a good, tough team. They've only lost to what I think is the best team in the NFL right now with the Buccaneers, and they lost by 3, right? And I do think the Buccaneers are the best team in the NFL. And then they lost to the 49ers, who were previously undefeated until they were beaten by us, and guess who? The Buccaneers. So the Seahawks are right up there at the top echelon of the league. Like they're easily top 10, probably top 5, honestly, if you look at who they've lost to. I think some rankings had them as high as 5, and the Seahawks are a very complete team, right? I'm not trying to glass them up or anything, but I wouldn't be surprised if the championship NFC came down to the Seahawks and the Buccaneers, which people would love that. That would be an amazing game to see. Have Baker Mayfield and Sam Darnold go at it again. But the Seahawks they're a very complete team right now. And the thing I underestimated was their defensive line. Because they came in waves. Trevor Lawrence got sacked more in this game, more than he had the entire year. I think he only had like 3 or 4 sacks on the season. They got to him 7 times on Sunday. 7 times, which is crazy to think about. But Byron Murphy, DeMarcus Lawrence was still showing a lot, even though he's, I think, in his 30s. Obviously, Leonard Williams is still playing at a really high level. And then Boye Mafe. They have a really deep rotation, and that defensive line got out of it, and they dominated the line of scrimmage. And it's unfortunate that we couldn't take advantage of their secondary missing some of their top guys in Devin Witherspoon. Tariq Woolen had been playing that well anyway, but they were missing him and Julian Love, who was a starter for them. We couldn't take advantage of that because Trevor never got any time. Because not only did he take 7 sacks, but he got 25 pressures. So if you think about it, that's over 30 times where, the quarterback does not have enough time to get through his reads. Because the pressure is, if you get pressured, you're not able to finish your reads because there's a guy in your face. And usually some of those off-script plays where Trevor has to run outside of the pocket, he can make some of his best throws and has made some of the best plays. But this time they contained him in the pocket very, very well. And then obviously on offense, I don't really blame our defense too bad for giving up 20 points to Sam Darnold, because honestly, Sam Darnold's been playing really well. Our third down efficiency was great. I think we held them to like 1 of 9 on third down, which is technically supposed to be a winning formula, right? I think the main problem was once we scored on offense, our defense let them score right back. And had our defense been able to make a stand right then and get us the ball back, and then we were able to score again, the game might have been different, might have felt different. We would have had could have been a momentum shift there. But it's never, and our defense has done this before in the past. Like when you score and then your defense goes and gives up points right after it, it kind of almost sucks away the momentum of that score. And so our in the like our defense did a great job of holding the Seahawks down to 20 points, but not enough to carry the momentum, right? In order to keep it there. Because by the time we started um, getting them to do all these three and outs, the game it wasn't out of hand, but we were already down by a score. So now we were playing catch up, and it might have been more conservative play calling from Seattle to try to run out the clock and everything. That could have been a factor as well. But the point being is we got to be able to run out that clock. I mean, we got to be able to keep the momentum. So if we score, our defense has to go make a stop or get a turnover or do something so we can keep that momentum and try to score again. Because I think that kind of sucked the wind out of our sails a little bit, and ultimately held us back from being able to take a commanding lead against the Seahawks. Um, so again, and I think this game illustrates how good Robert Hainsey is and how much we're gonna miss him. And I was a fan of the Jonah Monheim pick. I didn't want him to start this year. I wanted to take some time, and I wasn't really sure about Robert Hainsey. But this game has only proved to me how good Robert Hainsey is and how vital he is to our offensive line, because our offensive line is playing way better this year than it was last year, even after this abysmal performance today. But the thing is, like Robert from the center position, and I don't know why center is the most underpaid out of all the offensive line positions, but from the center position, Robert Hainsey's job is to pick up stunts, pick up blitzes, call them out, and make sure guys are in the right spots for the protection, right? And Seattle ran so many stunts and blitzes, and almost none of them were picked up because either Jonah Monheim didn't see them, didn't correctly diagnose them, or didn't correctly let the other guys know, hey, you got to be here, you got to be here. Now, for a veteran like Patrick McCarry, for Ezra Cleveland, who's been doing this for a while, yeah, you shouldn't really have to rely on a rookie in order to get set up right and to stop a stunt that's coming in your face, right? But Robert Hainsey, savvy veteran, clearly he knows what he's doing, because in any other game, like it's not like it's the first time someone's run a stunt or a blitz on our team. Difference is that Robert Hainsey has been able to diagnose it and pick it up, and so is Trevor too. But because Robert Hainsey was so good at it, it allowed Trevor to focus on where his skill position players were going to be. Now, Jonah Monheim, and again, that takes experience, it takes time. And obviously, playing again your first test against Seattle's defensive front, it's not like Jonah Monheim didn't get a chance to start against like the Panthers, right, or the Jets or the Raiders, some teams that don't have fearsome front four like the Seahawks do. So it was a tough task for a rookie. But to me, this is clear that we need Robert Hainsey back as soon as possible. Um, because we did have, and like it's in the Chiefs game, Jonah Monheim came in and they were kind of able to, they didn't miss a beat, right? They kept driving down the field and we were able to get that score. And I think it was a little bit different because I think the momentum of the game was already going. We had an idea for where Steve Spagnuolo was sending blitzes. So I think he just kind of fit in the groove that Robert Hainsey already left behind. But in the Seahawks game, again, I don't know. Maybe Robert Hainsey would have played as bad if it maybe it would have been just as bad if Robert Hainsey was in. But there were some guys getting beat that they shouldn't have been getting beat. Like Walker Little got beat a lot. Anton Harrison, I think he was in and out of the game. I think he's still a little bit hurt. This was probably one of his worst games. It was the worst game of the season for probably all the guys on the offensive line. And again, I think that's a big difference with Robert Hainsey, especially because if Robert Hainsey can take on most defensive tackles one-on-one, that does free up other guys to help with blitz and stunts and stuff too. But if Jonah Monheim is struggling against a guy and Cleveland has to come out, okay, now you might have a free rusher. Or now someone like Leonard Williams, who might need to be double teamed, can't be double teamed because Jonah Monheim needs help guarding Byron Murphy because he can't do it by himself. And again, he's a 7th round rookie. Like, so like let's give him some time, give him some grace. I don't know if he'll be our starter of the future. We'll see. That's all stuff that can be taken care of in the future. He definitely has the physical tools, right? And I think we saw that in the Chiefs game. So that's why I think this was more of a mental thing than necessarily a physical thing, of understanding the game and why he wasn't able to. But clearly, it had a huge impact on us. I'm not sure if Hainsey is coming with us to London. That would be vital if we're going to stand a chance against the Rams front, because if we thought the Seahawks were fearsome, like the Seahawks have guys that are drifting out of their prime. Rams have guys that are going to be in their prime within the next 2, 3. Some of them are squarely in the middle of their prime. So if we thought the Seahawks defensive line was going to be tough, wait till we play the Rams in London. So hopefully Robert Hainsey can be back and play because we need him. And I think the injury to Brenton Strange hurt us a lot more than I thought. I thought we'd been able to weather the storm, and fortunately, like I said, we've got the bye week, so we'll get him back after that. Even if we take a loss here against the Rams, which again, don't want, I'm going to talk about how we can take advantage of them in this next episode, but it's going to be tough for us to bounce back, I guess, with Breton. It's going to kind of feel like all that if we go two losses into the bye and we're 4-3, all that momentum from beating the Chiefs will feel kind of stale. And we don't want that. Now the Raiders will be a get right game right after that. We can't drop it, but it will be a get right game. But that'll be tough because you really want to go. If we can go into our Houston game 5-2, there's I'm not gonna say a good chance for a sweep, but it could happen. You know, like I said, it's Houston is a team that's trying to get itself back on its feet. They have a couple of tough matchups before us, and so if we get them while they're reeling, while they're struggling, while they're maybe even pressing to try to make plays that aren't really there because their season is on the line, that can be a good opportunity for us to take advantage and get that upset. So anyway, back to the game. Obviously JSN torched us. I mean, he blew past Greg Newsome on one of the first plays. I think Greg Newsome thought he had safety help, and again, we were expecting him to thrive in zone. But again, I don't even like. I know they traded Tyson Campbell for him. I wish they could have like done the trade and then had it take effect like on Monday or something, because that's not enough time for like Greg Newsome to know our playbook. And like we need him to come in because Tyson Campbell's gone. So like you got to take a starting spot. But like with the trade, like I wouldn't even played him probably because he's only been here for 2 days and zone concepts tend to be more complicated than man. Now, it does help that Tyson Campbell also got beat by DK Metcalf the same weekend. So it doesn't look like most people in the league probably look at that trade and were like, what the heck? You got two struggling corners out there that just got traded for each other. So that does make me feel a little bit better, right? It's not like Tyson Campbell went out and balled over in Cleveland. But that is some communication things that we need to iron out. And it didn't really matter and that was my worry with Tyson Campbell because he's used to going against the best of the best. But when JSN was in the game, it didn't matter who we had on him. Like Jordan Lewis got beat by Cooper Kupp, which was for a really good touchdown. And I thought Jordan Lewis would be able to handle Cooper Kupp. And I think he mostly did, but he just did get beat on that one play. But it didn't matter who JSN was on, whether it was Lewis, Newsome. I don't know if he lined up against Hunter that much. I don't know how many defensive snaps Travis Hunter played. But he took advantage of everybody. And again, I can understand trading Tyson Campbell to get out from that contract, but now we don't have anyone with number one corner experience. Now, of course, you can get number one corner experience, but that means you're going to be thrown into the fire facing the top guys. So that's the thing that we have going on this week. So yeah, it was a rough game. And I think this game, like if I had to pinpoint the loss on, I think Brian Thomas Jr. had a much better day. But he had one critical drop. But I'm going to preface that by saying I think Brian Thomas Jr. was our lone bright spot yesterday. I mean, when on Sunday against the Seahawks. And again, even the play where Tyson Campbell was lined up offsides and that negated a 61-yard touchdown, that was such a fluky play. It was kind of a pick at first. I thought it was going to be an interception because the DB had both hands on it. Brian Thomas Jr. knocked it out of his hands and caught the deflection and then ran it back for 61 yards. That is just a heads up play by Brian Thomas. And he's the MVP of the game if Travis Hunter isn't offsides on a play that didn't even end up affecting it at all, which is just so. And the thing is, I knew it because as soon as the play happened, the flag was thrown. And I think what happened, Trevor thought it must have been offsides on the defense, because usually when the offsides is on the offense and they call it, they stop the play. They blow the whistle, the play is dead. But if it's offsides on the defense, they'll throw the flag, and if the quarterback sees that, he knows he's got a free play. So if I'm Trevor and I see the flag, I'm like, okay, I'm going to force it into a tight window there, see if Brian Thomas Jr. can make a play. It doesn't matter because the flag, it'll be coming back if we have to accept this penalty. So I understand Trevor's decision there because I don't think he thought it was a flag on us, right? And he ended up being right because even though it looked like a pick, Brian Thomas Jr. would have turned it into a touchdown. Turns out the offsides was on us. So it's kind of like it kind of affected the play still because I don't know if Trevor makes that throw if the flag isn't thrown. Now maybe he didn't see the flag at all, and that's just. But that's something that Aaron Rodgers like mastermind, getting guys to jump off early. The play starts now; it's a free play, and the receivers know just go deep. He's going to throw the ball. If you can make a play, great. If not, it doesn't matter. It's coming back. And I feel like that's why Trevor made that throw because Brian Thomas Jr. for all intents and purposes was covered on that play. But anyway, going back, I think Brian Thomas Jr. I think he was the best part of this game. I mean, he scored our only touchdown. Well, no, Tim Patrick then scored another one and that was a good throw and a good catch by Trevor to Tim Patrick on that one. But Brian Thomas Jr. had, I mean, he was making catches. He was putting us in positions to succeed, and then he had one critical drop on 3rd and 5. It was critical. But my thing is, I can't really down Brian Thomas Jr. as a wide receiver 1 for that one mistake. I mean, yes, that's a mistake that wide receiver 1s don't make. But to me, when I'm looking at the game, he had one mistake. And yes, Trevor was under pressure all game. But Trevor had way more mistakes than Brian Thomas Jr. did. If you look at his stat line looks respectable, but until you look at the completion percentage. But, Trevor had over 200 yards, threw for 2 touchdowns. It's actually pretty comparable to Sam Darnold until you look at the completion percentage. And there were so many passes that Trevor was throwing that felt like they were just zipping over guys' heads. He wasn't hitting them in the chest. There was a perfect play where if he hits Hunter Long in the chest, now you're in 2nd and 3, which is the perfect play call on 1st down. Pick up some yards, 2nd and 3. You get to open up your playbook a little more instead of facing 2nd and 10. And of course, it went to 3rd and 10 and they had a 3 and out. And it's just things like that. It's a quarterback making $55 million shouldn't be missing those throws. And I don't know if it was because he was under pressure all game. And, I still believe he's the guy, but it's tough when it feels like these are not just routine, mundane things, but the criticism wouldn't be there if the contract wasn't there. That's my whole point. If you're getting paid like one of the highest quarterbacks in the NFL, that's because you make all the throws. Easy. I feel like Dak Prescott, he would do that in his sleep. Joe Burrow, Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes. I'm not saying Trevor Lawrence has to be those guys, but he's getting paid more than those guys, which would imply that he can do the things that those guys do. And that's where the criticism comes in, right? It's not and again, if this is Trevor's 2nd year, 3rd year, okay, some of these throws, yeah. But he's not Bryce Young. He's up there, and even if you compare him to Baker Mayfield, right? Because a lot of people compare Trevor Lawrence to Josh Allen. Josh Allen took some time to get going, right? Baker Mayfield also, he took even longer than Josh Allen to get going. He had to go through several different systems before he found his groove. But he didn't get paid until he found his groove and became that consistent quarterback that it feels like we're kind of still waiting for Trevor. And I understand the idea to pay him first off of potential, but we still need it. We need you to hit the guys in the chest. Even the throw that was up high for Brian, that Brian Thomas Jr. was catching. Now, Trevor did need to get it over the defensive tackles, right? So maybe that's why the ball was so high. But if it's just a little bit lower, if Brian Thomas, when he jumps to get it, it hits him in the chest instead of him having to jump and reach for it. Now, again, it hits your hands. You got to catch it. There's just no excuse for that. And if Trevor's trying to get over the defensive line, okay, that's why it has to be that high. But there was another play where De'Ami Brown beat a guy, got behind the secondary, and Trevor just overthrew him by a yard or so. And those overthrows happen, but in a game like this, against a tough team, to me, the quarterbacks in that upper echelon make those throws, especially against a team like this. You might see the misses sometimes, but it's that's a throw you got to make. And that's the part that's, probably has a lot of Jags fans concerned, because obviously we all still believe in Trevor. But it just feels like that's not the result that you expect with someone with a contract that large. And like I said, we already talked about the defense a little bit. I think partly why our defense struggled, of course, Trayvon Walker was on a pitch count, so Josh Hines-Allen was getting doubled every single play. Fun fact, I work as a stagehand sometimes, and I was working as a stagehand for the NBA Youngboy concert that was at the VyStar Veterans Memorial Stadium. And I happened to pass by Josh Allen as I was coming in, checking in for the to the end of the shift to come back in, and Josh Allen was walking out, and I told him he would beat the sack record. Of course, that didn't exactly happen, but it was very cool to be in his presence, and it's cool to be in Jacksonville and just know, like, yeah, some of these players that we talk about are literally like, up the road, around the block, somewhere around here. So anyway, sorry, random tangent. But yeah, so Josh Hines Allen was getting double teamed. By Seattle has a solid offensive line as well. I mean, their rookie is playing really well. Charles Cross was a high draft pick from a couple of seasons ago. So they've got some good guys on the line. And then Trayvon Walker was on a pitch count, and I still don't think he's 100% anyway with that wrist. I know he tried to play, but like he just had surgery on it. So, it was tough for our defense to generate pressure. But I still think holding them to, like I said, 1 of 8 on third down and beating them and holding them to 20 points, really, if it wasn't for a couple of explosive plays, because there was one, I don't know if Jason had one touchdown or 2 touchdowns, but it was 2 explosive plays that the defense gave up, right, that we need to prevent. But other than that, they had a good showing. And of course, JSN just beat the zone coverage on Greg Newsome, and then AJ Barner beat the zone coverage. I don't know if it was on Andrew Wingard or Greg Newsome, either one. And again, a lot of that, I think our secondary is also used to getting more pressure because Brock Purdy had no time to throw when they played, making a lot of those turnovers happen because he had no time to throw. Same thing with the Bengals. So we got to get that pass rush going again. And hopefully Trayvon Walker won't miss as much time, but without him, it's really affecting our pass rush. And I don't know. I didn't expect to be saying that at this point in the year. But it makes a difference with him not being out there. Also, Devin Lloyd looks like he got hurt, which is going to really hurt us against the Rams. We'll get into this. Well, I guess we'll go ahead and transition to us talking about the Rams because, the Seahawks game was tough, but I think at 4-2, we're still in an excellent position to make the playoffs. We'll talk a little bit about that, and then we'll go into the Rams game. Because as far as us looking at the playoffs and the division and the games that we have to win on the road ahead, obviously would love to get a win in London against the Rams. That would really because now it feels like we have to defend our contender status, right? Because people online are still saying, oh, Jags are a fluke after beat the 49ers and the Seahawks and the Chiefs. And then look at the Seahawks game and see like, yep, we proved it. They're a fluke. Okay, the Seahawks are contenders too, right? Contenders beat up on each other. That's the way it goes. The Lions just got beat by the Chiefs, right? But they're both contenders. The Eagles got beat by the Chiefs, but the Eagles also lost to the Broncos. Contender like that's the kind of thing that happens. And I think there's more parity this year than in any other league. But to me, when people look at like Indy and say like they're contenders, the Colts are contenders, but the Jags aren't. I'm like, who have the Colts beaten? They haven't beaten anybody. Jaguars have beaten the 49ers. The Colts beat the Broncos. Are we saying the Broncos are better than the 49ers right now? Because I don't really think so. They've had some good wins. They beat the Eagles, yeah, but the 49ers have beat the Seahawks, right? And the 49ers almost beat the Buccaneers, and the 49ers beat the Rams while they were hurt. They were undefeated until we played them. So as far as looking at the playoff picture, let me know your thoughts on this too, because like I want to win the division, but I also don't know if I want to win the division because I feel like the Texans right now are suffering because they have a first place schedule. And again, if we had to play the Buccaneers over the Panthers, we would be 3-3 right now because the Buccaneers are just on another level right now. And if the Texans had played the Panthers, they would have a much better schedule. You see what I mean? Like the Texans have to go play those first place teams because of the way their schedule broke. I thought the Texans were going to lose to the Ravens until, of course, Lamar Jackson went out. But I think the Texans still have to play guys like I don't know if they play the Lions. I think they have to still play the Eagles. I know they have to play the Bills. They have tough games on the schedule because that's what happens when you get the first place. So I'm almost like, I don't want Indy to just win it by default and us to not make the playoffs. But I'm like, if we do the Vikings route, that they did, where they went 14-3 the year before, but ended up getting the 5th seed in the playoffs, and the Lions got the number 1 seed at 15-1. Like if the Colts go 12-5, something crazy, and we go 12-5, but the way the math works out, they still win the division, I think I'm okay because I think I want the Jaguars to go on the road. I think we can still win a playoff game on the road. I think we've shown that we can go into hostile environments and win. And I think the only real advantage you have, because it's nice having a home division game, but the only real advantage you have is having the number 1 seed. So if we make the playoffs as the number 5 seed, next year having a second place schedule in our division will set us up extremely well to be able to potentially make a play for the number 1 seed next season. I mean, of course, getting the number 1 season this season would be great, right? Number 1 seed, you should always want to win games, but that's just kind of what I'm like wrestling with, like which direction do we go? And obviously, it's very early in the season, but with the Bills losing to the Falcons, we're only 1 game back from the number 1 seed, and they're in our division, the Colts. So we kind of control our fate. If we want the number 1 seed, just go beat them twice, and we get it. You know what I mean? So it kind of feels like it's all. I mean, it's always within your hands, but like even more so than other years. But looking at the other teams in the division in the AFC, I think it's nice that we beat the Chiefs because the Chiefs might be competing for a wild card because the division will come down to them, the Broncos, and the Chargers. And I think if there's any games that we need to win, like if we end up losing to the Rams, but we beat the Chargers and beat the Broncos, I'll be happy because that gives us tiebreakers over them for the playoff spots. Because now New England is starting to heat up and they're going to be competing for a wild card spot. And again, they have a very easy schedule. They still got the Jets twice to play, and they got to play Miami another time. And they already beat the Bills once. Not to mention who else is kind of making a play? I think the Steelers look like they're going to kind of run away with their division, but also a lot of people are counting out the Ravens. I wouldn't. I look at the rest of their schedule. They're 1-5 right now. They've got the rest of the games on their schedule are winnable. Their toughest opponents are the Steelers and the Packers that they've got left. They could win every other game because they play the Bengals twice. They got the Browns again. And then, they have the Texans. They have a few other teams. Oh, no, they don't have the Texans. But their schedule becomes very, very easy after this. So it's kind of like the way the Colts open up the year with a very easy schedule. So all of that will kind of play out. But basically, the Jags can't take our foot off the gas, right? Like we need to keep grinding and winning games. I mean, let's beat the Rams, the Chargers, and the Broncos. We've proven that we can do it. And obviously the Chargers, almost losing to Miami, their offensive line is still struggling. And that'll be a big game. I think we have a better chance to beat the Chargers at home than we do to beat the Broncos going to their stadium in Mile High. So let's talk about how we can beat the Rams and what the game was looking out to. It looks like Devin Lloyd got hurt, so he won't be joining us in London, which is a huge blow to our defense because his skills and coverage were excellent. He was fitting his zone scheme extremely well. And I think that's part of what allowed JSN to kind of get open so much because when JSN was running through zones, he would run into Devin Lloyd's zone, right? And so if Devin Lloyd has him, Sam Darnold maybe looks that way and doesn't throw it and throws it to someone else, right? But I think like it might look like JSN beat Greg Newsome, but it might be that JSN crossed into Ventrell Miller's zone, who was playing for Devin Lloyd. And if he beats Ventrell Miller's not fast enough. Sam Darnold's already looking that way and throwing the ball to him. So by the time it passes off to Greg Newsome, JSN's already been open and Greg Newsome's just chasing him to try to tackle him. It could have been something like that. Or at least if he passes into Devin Lloyd's zone and he looks covered, now Sam has to go to another read. So those are the zone concepts that are making a difference. And I said all offseason, man, I wish we had a good coverage linebacker. And we finally do. He was right there. he just hadn't put it together yet. Because Foye Oluokun, he's a thumper. I still love him on our defense, but he's not great in zone. That's just not his thing. He's not a great coverage linebacker, is what I'll say. And the same thing with Venture Miller, same thing with Zach Kaiser. So that's why we really need to keep Devin Lloyd because he's one of the best coverage linebackers in the NFL. He's our best coverage linebacker by far. Not only is he our best one, he's our only coverage linebacker because not all linebackers are good in coverage. So I say all that to say that's going to be a huge blow for our defense. I think the only chance we really need Robert Hainsey to play. I need to look up some more information to see if he's going to. Because if Robert Hainsey doesn't play, I don't think our offensive line will have a chance. Now, we do have a chance against the Rams because Puka Nacua is hurt. So it looks like he won't be playing. So defensively, that means, and Travis Hunter's been playing so well on defense, I'd be fine leaving Travis Hunter on the other side and let our zone double Devontae Adams. and then let Travis Hunter cover the other guy, maybe in man, or you could do some zone pass off, things like that. But as long as you have Devontae Adams covered, I think we can limit the Rams offense and what they want to do. And our run defense was still good against the Seahawks, right? It didn't suffer because, again, our linebackers are very good against the run. So I think, Kyron Williams, if we're able to bottle up the run game and keep Devontae Adams covered, Matthew Stafford won't have a lot of options, even though we'll be missing Devin Lloyd. So it almost evens out, but not quite. I think if we're missing Robert Hainsey, it'll probably end up being a loss. If we do have Robert Hainsey, then it'll end up being, I think we can win because Trevor just needed some more time. I think a lot of those throws were because he was getting antsy in the pocket because he kept getting hit so much. And all those pressures that can throw off your accuracy and make you have a bad game. But I do think like that's something you got to learn or figure out how to overcome if you're going to be this level of quarterback, right? Pressure in your face. And Trevor, like, don't get me wrong, he's not scared of pressure. He will stand in there and take a hit. When I say he was getting antsy in the pocket, I mean, like, there are times where Trevor will see a guy that's open and he'll know a guy is coming, but he's like, I have enough time to complete this throw. He looks at it, makes it, it's an accurate throw, like what he did to Brian Thomas Jr. against the Chiefs. But I think a couple of times before Trevor was ready to make his throw, he got hit, right? And so now he's thinking, every time he makes a throw, he's thinking, I got to make this throw quicker so I don't get hit before the throw comes. Because the last thing you want to do is be throwing while you're hit because the ball is most vulnerable in that position. And a lot of that kind of comes down to the offensive line. So I think that kind of messed up his internal clock, right? Because like now you're trying to throw the ball quicker and it won't be as accurate because you don't have enough time to really pinpoint where it's going to go because you think, oh, I'm about to get hit because I've been getting hit all game. And the best way to solve that is to get Robert Hainsey back and give him good protection and see what he can do. Because it's a shame because Brian Thomas Jr. had a good game. Travis Hunter wasn't really able to build off of the Chiefs' performance in this game. But the Rams do have, like I say, like a cornerback weakness, but their cornerbacks is probably the weakest part of their defense, right? Of their defense. So if we can give Trevor a pocket, right? Maybe leave some guys in to protect. And that's it. And not having Brenton Strange hurts because the run game really does set up the pass. But leave guys like LaQuint Allen in more often or leave ETN in more often to protect. I think with time, our receivers could beat their defensive backs as long as Liam Cohen draws up the right scheme. And he did want to attack the Seahawks secondary because they were missing guys. I think he called a game plan for that, but that game plan called for time in the pocket, and the Seahawks weren't giving him that. And I think that's what ended up ruining the game and messing up the game plan for us. I also think I want to see, especially in this game, I want to see some design Trevor runs because they mentioned it in the Chiefs game. Sometimes Trevor is one of those guys where like if nothing's happening, like it takes a minute for him to get going. It takes a minute for him to get going. He doesn't necessarily come out onto the field, start like dropping dimes everywhere. Sometimes it takes a second for him to like, but one of the ways to do that is with a run. Let him run and go pick up a first down. And then he gets fired up and now he's like kind of in the zone. And so like whenever things were breaking down against the Chiefs, when he scrambled and got that run, it was kind of like, yeah, he got fired up. And we can design that to make that happen. It's a running offense and having a third person, just having him fake the handoff and take it himself. Just, it doesn't have to be often, but just once or twice a drive, maybe once or twice a quarter is enough to at least confuse the defense a little bit because now they got another guy to defend. You can use that running back that you fake the ball off to as your lead blocker or as a blocker to take one guy out, and now you have one extra guy on the defense taken out, and the quarterback can go make something happen. And again, just to kind of get Lawrence in a rhythm, because right now in the Chiefs game, it felt like, oh, if we get Lawrence running, that'll unlock his passing. And that's what, that's what it felt like it felt like that's what we were going to do against the Seahawks. It just never really manifested. So let's see if we can do that. And I think that's a good recipe for beating the Rams. But it all comes back to Robert Hainsey. So whatever you got to do, we need him healthy, right? Like he's got to be out there on the field because we obviously need him. So let me know your thoughts. Are the Jaguars going to be able to pull off a win against the Rams in London? And never forget, it was always the Jags.